Cheating wife walked in smiling after her lunch date. I made her regret it. It started with a gut feeling. It always does, doesn't it? Some imperceptible shift in tone, an unusual softness in her voice when she'd say, "I'll be out for lunch with a friend." The kind of softness you only notice if you've heard the sharp edges before. The ones I thought I had dulled over years of devotion. Laura and I had been married for 8 years. 8 years of morning coffees, whispered dreams, and the silent understanding that comes from knowing someone so completely. I thought we were solid. Sure, we had our disagreements, who didn't? I chalked it up to the natural wear and tear of life. That was before the late-night text I accidentally saw while her phone rested on the couch beside me. Can't stop thinking about today. The message was from a number I didn't recognize. When I asked her about it, she brushed it off with a nervous laugh. "It's nothing, just a group chat. You know how girls can be." I nodded but didn't press further. That night, lying in bed beside her, staring at the ceiling, I knew something was wrong. Very, very wrong. Weeks passed. Her lunch dates became more frequent. Her excuses grew vaguer. One afternoon, she left her phone unattended, and I did something I'm not proud of. I went through it. The texts I found weren't just suggestive. They were explicit. Her friend was a man named Eric, and judging by their exchanges, their lunch dates were far more than quick sandwiches and small talk. A rush of nausea, anger, and humiliation surged through me. My wife, my Laura, was having an affair. And it wasn't just physical. Their texts were dripping with emotional intimacy. The kind we used to share. The kind I thought we still had. For a week, I carried the knowledge in silence, unsure of what to do. Confront her? Pack my bags and leave? Beg her for an explanation? I did none of those things. Instead, I planned. It started with research. Social media rabbit holes led me to Eric. He was a colleague of hers, a sales representative she'd collaborated with on a project. He was married too. His wife, Christine, was a petite brunette with kind eyes and 2 kids under 5. My heart broke for her, but sympathy didn't stop me. Next, I hired a private investigator. Frank, a grizzled man with a bulldog face, had a no-nonsense attitude. His photos confirmed everything. Laura and Eric leaving a hotel together, brushing arms, laughing, and even kissing in her car. The proof was undeniable. Then I reached out to Christine. My message was simple. "Hi Christine, this is going to be hard to hear, but I believe your husband, Eric, is having an affair with my wife, Laura. I've attached photos. I'm sorry to be the one to tell you this." Her response came an hour later. "Thank you for telling me." The ball was rolling now, and I was no longer in control of where it would stop. But I had one final move. I wanted Laura to see the wreckage she'd caused, to feel the weight of her choices. So, I invited her to lunch. "Just the 2 of us," I said, forcing a smile. "We haven't done that in a while." She seemed relieved. Maybe she thought my sudden attentiveness meant I suspected nothing. Little did she know, it was the calm before the storm. The day arrived. I set the table with precision. A crisp white tablecloth, our finest silverware, and 2 glasses of wine. On the surface, it looked like an attempt to rekindle romance. In reality, it was a stage. The centerpiece wasn't flowers, but a manila envelope filled with every damning piece of evidence Frank had gathered. Laura walked in smiling, her cheeks flushed from her supposed lunch date. She froze when she saw the table. Her eyes darted from the envelope to me. "What's this?" she asked, her voice shaky. "Sit," I said, gesturing to the chair. Reluctantly, she did. I slid the envelope across the table. "Open it." She hesitated, then complied. Her jaw tightened as she sifted through the photos and text messages. "I can explain," she stammered, her voice weak. "Explain." I leaned back in my chair, my tone calm but cutting. "Explain what? That you've been lying to me for months? That you've been sneaking around with a married man? That you've treated our marriage like it's disposable?" Tears welled in her eyes. "It's not like that," she whispered. "Then what is it like, Laura?" I demanded, my voice rising. "Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you've been having your cake and eating it too." She broke down, sobbing and mumbling apologies that meant nothing. I let her cry. When she finally looked up at me, her face streaked with tears, I dropped the next bombshell. "I've spoken to Christine," I said. Her eyes widened in horror. "You what?" "She knows everything, just like I do. You've destroyed not 1, but 2 families. Congratulations." At that moment, there was a knock at the door. Laura's head whipped around, her expression a mix of fear and confusion. I opened the door to reveal Christine. She stepped inside, her face calm but her eyes blazing. And behind her was Eric. "What is this?" Laura whispered. "This," I said, "is closure." The confrontation was brutal. Christine unleashed years of pent-up frustration on Eric, who stammered and stumbled over his excuses. Laura tried to intervene, but Christine turned on her with a ferocity I'd never seen. "Don't you dare try to justify this," she snarled. "You're selfish, deceitful, a homewrecker." Eric attempted to defend himself, muttering something about feeling unappreciated at home. I laughed bitterly. "Unappreciated? You've got 2 beautiful kids and a wife who'd move heaven and earth for you. And this is how you repay her." By the end of it, Laura and Eric were broken shells of the people they were when they walked in. That night, Laura packed her bags and left. I filed for divorce the next day. Christine did the same. Eric lost his job when Christine sent their employer copies of the evidence. Laura's reputation crumbled as word of the affair spread among friends and family. They had no one to blame but themselves. As for me, it wasn't easy. There were nights I cried myself to sleep, mornings when getting out of bed felt impossible. But with time, the anger faded, replaced by a quiet determination to rebuild. I started therapy, took up running, and reconnected with old friends. A year later, I'm happier than I've been in years. I've learned to value myself, to demand honesty and respect from the people in my life. Laura and Eric? Last I heard, their relationship didn't survive the weight of their guilt. Revenge may not be the healthiest motivation, but sometimes it's the catalyst we need to reclaim our power. And reclaim it I did.